Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mammals, cats, dogs, ducks, all that good shit in between, you are not rocking the Dress Podcast. I'm your host, Sean 5K. You can follow me on Twitter at I Love Sean 5000. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our 2021 content flood. We are knee deep in NBA draft season and we got content coming at you guys heavy. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you're not missing any of this. On today's episode, though, we do have a very, very, very interesting prospect to break down. Alperen Sengun, how you guys like that pronouncement? Only took me about 15 minutes before I recorded that to get that right. But yeah, Alperen Sengun, a very, very interesting prospect out of Turkey, a 6'10 center out of Turkey who played for Besiktas. You know, coming into this actual draft cycle, he was somebody who I would say wasn't on a lot of radars. He was definitely an under the radar guy. And for myself, at least, for a large portion of the season, I considered Usman Garuba, another international import who played for Real Madrid, to be the best international prospect coming over to the States this year. But, you know, after I dug into the actual tape and watched a lot of this kid, I came away thoroughly impressed, and he actually became one of my favorite guys, and he's one of the more interesting guys in this crop of prospects. So his getting into his projection on the next level is definitely something that's going to be a sight to behold. So yeah, let's dive right into the film room and let's talk about Alperen. This kid had a historic season, a historically productive season for a teenager, you know, at any level, to be honest. He put up great numbers of 19 points per game in about 28 minutes per game. He averaged 9.4 rebounds, 1.7 blocks, 81% free throws from the free throw line. And, you know, he has a old school game, definitely somebody who you can make the argument that, you know, came along too late in the modern NBA, but he's a calming post presence, and he takes his time to get to his spots. He has an impressive arsenal of counters and he displays good touch all around the basket, and he really does have a litany of moves that he's comfortable going to. You know, he keeps defenders out of rhythm with a herky-jerky rhythm, and he usually baits guys into fouls. Another trait that he does great is definitely baiting guys for fouls and picking up fouls. To put into perspective the production that Sengun actually showed as a teenager in the Turkish league, as an 18-year-old, he was the only player inside of the top 10 of points scored that was 25 years or younger, in addition to finishing fourth in rebounds and second in blocks. You know, I feel like a lot of casual fans who don't really follow the international FIBA game, they might scoff at, you know, somebody coming over from one of these leagues. But to be honest, when you really talk about it, he's going up against grown men. You catch some familiar faces watching the film. Like, I know, like, going through a couple games, a game against Valencia where he was going up against, you know, former number 2 pick Derek Williams. And you also see other guys who bounced around the league, like Shane Larkin and Roddy Beaubois, you know, grown men, professional basketball players. So, you know, it's definitely what he did at this level is not something to really scoff at. There's a lot to like in this profile, and he does a lot of things that should be able to translate onto the next level. One thing, just talking about him as a roller, at least, you know, he does time his rolls well, and he rolls with intent. You know, if you ever talk about, you know, big men are usually the most frustrating position for coaches to actually, you know, scout or just coach in general, because, you know, there's a lot of times where big men are usually the ones who get hit with the label of not loving the game. But somebody like Sengun, you can really tell that he has instincts, and he's a very, very skilled post player. Everything that he does on the court has a reason and an actioning, and he doesn't you know, waste any energy. And one of the most interesting things about Sengun, and talking about his projection to the NBA level, is his intrigue as a passer. He shows a budding sixth sense, you know, of just understanding where everybody is on the court, finding cutters on the weak side, playing that quarterback position out of the post, always keeping his head up, which is another thing that, you know, passing out of the post is something that usually does give younger big men trouble. But, you know, he does show that type of IQ that you love to see from a big man. You know, he's not the most explosive guy. He does lack vertical explosiveness, but he does have an uncanny sense of positioning, which does allow him to fight for rebounds. It's rare to see somebody who can really pass, be a negative just on awareness and IQ. But Sengun's passing ability is something that it's something that really stood out to me, and it's a part of the package about why he can be an alluring prospect. He averaged 2.5 assists in 28 minutes per game, which is a very strong number for a teenage prospect, particularly when you consider European teams usually don't task their centers or young centers in particular with a lot of creation responsibility. So the fact that he was already manipulating defenses on that end and throwing a bunch of nifty passes, when you want to talk about wraparound passes in traffic, hitting weak side passers and finding cutters, his ability to just understand what's going around for him, it paves well for where he will be in a couple years from now. So he's not the most explosive kid, and he's not the most, when you talk about vertically explosive, what we consider elite NBA athletes, but his frame, and he's a very strong kid who's not afraid to bang down low, and particularly when we talk about going up against grown men, a lot of his work, when we talk about what he does on the boards and really using his lower half to pave space, a lot of the stuff, not waiting. There's guys who watch the ball when it's in the air instead of just putting your ass on somebody, which any coach will tell you, put an ass on somebody, get a hand on somebody, make sure you're making your presence felt. And that's definitely something that his motor on the glass, that's something that you can't really teach, but that also does pave well for his projection. Here on the Draft City Podcast, we do hate comparisons because it's pretty lazy, and there's a lot of people throwing out a Nikola Jokic comparison for Sengun, and like I said, it's pretty lazy. And gun to my head, if I had to throw out somebody that he does remind me of, it's another all-star player, which it's a great sign if you're comparing him to an all-star. But his body type and his play type, it's much more Domantas Sabonis than it is Jokic, which is not a bad thing at all, because if you are familiar with Sabonis's or Domantas's projection or his growth as a player coming over to Gonzaga and what he did, he's already, steps ahead of Sabonis as an 18-year-old. So just to consider where his skill might be in a couple years in his game, because watching him and watching what he did early in the season and watching where he was at towards the middle and towards the end of the season, just particularly with the jump shot, you saw the jump shot really improve, and you saw him get more comfortable. And, the jump shot is a wild card for any player, to be honest, but for him in particular, if he can get into anything resembling a league average shooter, it makes up for some of the other deficiencies that he will have, particularly on the defensive end. And just going back to it, he was the MVP of the Turkish league at 18 years old. This is a really strong crop of wings, so it might be tough for him to sneak into the back half of the lottery, but I definitely think he's a talent that could produce a starting center in the league in short order. And definitely smash a like for us. Draft City Podcast, we out of here, man.